Hey, this is Sky. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So let's talk about broken homes. I came from a broken home. My parents divorced when I was 4. My father checked out. My father ended up in prison for biting a cop's thumb off. He had a shipment of guns that he was running, illegal weapons, machine guns that he was running, that he was going to sell to the cartel. My mom had been getting beat by my father, so she was desperate to leave him. There was really no chance that that marriage would have lasted. My mother truly shacked up with the wrong dude. Was moving too fast, and she didn't get to know him well enough. She didn't get to know what kind of monster, what kind of twisted psychopath that she was actually marrying and having a child with. We've all been in shitty relationships. We've all had that one crazy girlfriend or that psycho boyfriend, but my mom had a kid with the motherfucker. He used to beat her. My mom was smart enough to not take that shit, and she left, and rightly so. And I never have blamed her for leaving my father, never once. I was angry that I grew up without a dad. As a little boy, I missed my father. I had such a short time with him. And it wasn't him as an individual, because I remembered my father beating my mother. I've watched my father beat my mother. I've never once seen my father kiss my mother. I've never seen my father hug my mother. I've never seen my father tell my mother that he loves her. But I've seen her punch her in the face. I've seen him rape her. So I don't regret them breaking up. I don't have any fantasies. I've never once said that, oh, I wish that you and my dad were back together. I've never wished for that. But as a little boy, I wished that I had a man around. I wished that I had somebody who could guide me. And I didn't have that. And I ended up the stereotypical case of when a broken home raises a kid, when a weak woman with no experience and no help raises a little boy on her own. Grew up in apartment projects, grew up poor, struggled in school. I fought a lot. I ran with gangs from the age of 10. I had always, from the time I was a little boy up into my 30s, I had looked for older guys to kind of mentor me, gangsters. So I always had some gangster who was slightly older than me kind of play that fatherly role, teaching me how to rob, cheat, and steal. Those were the lessons I learned. I didn't have any kind of Andy Griffith bullshit. I only wish that I would have had that. I would have turned out differently. So you kind of get the picture that I'm painting. I had a very classic case, a scenario of what happens to young men when they come from broken homes. Many of the other young men that were out in the streets with me, same story. Their fathers, if they were around, were drug addicts and criminals, just like mine. Dysfunctional. I had a buddy of mine who, he lived with his dad, but he only saw his dad once every few months. This was a 13, 14-year-old kid. His dad stopped by once every few months. 13, 14-year-old kid starving to death. No food. Has to rob people for food. You're going to go home and play video games and do your homework and go to bed, and your mom's going to kiss you. Good night. We go out and rob people so we can eat. I grew up with that fuck the world mode. Embedded, ingrained in me. Engraved into my soul. This world sucks and everybody in it sucks. I had no hope. That's the one key emotion that I know better than anybody, that I know better than any other emotion, is hopelessness. I know what it's like to have no hope. So what do? Is it a life sentence? It can be. I regret some of my choices, some of my weaknesses. Wish that I would have become stronger earlier. so I could have gone through less self-inflicted struggle, made less bad decisions. I can sit around and blame the fact that I didn't have a father. I'm the way who I am. You have to accept me as this total loser, this dysfunctional asshole. You have to accept me as a criminal. Accept me for what I am and who I am. Simply because I was dealt a shorthand in life. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. Right? This was what many people say. I know people that are 10 years older than me, that are in their 60s, that are still crying that same song. Still crying at age 58 and 65. I know guys that are that age that are still crying about, well, I didn't have a dad. You got to get over that shit. I did. I realized that I was going to have to become a man on my own. It may be harder for me. At age 25, I was learning lessons that you learned at age 5. At age 30, I was trying to teach myself, to father myself. At age 40, I finally became a man. I finally felt in my head that I'm finally a man. It took me to age 40, much longer than average people. Some people make that declaration at 25. They get through their teenage years, their early 20s, you still kind of feel like an overgrown teenager. You finally get out of the military or graduate college and you get yourself a job and you get married and you start thinking about kids and you feel like a man. And a lot of people plant that flag and say, I've reached manhood. I didn't do that until I was 40. I didn't reach that place to plant my flag and say, I'm a man now, until I was well into manhood. Some people never plant that flag. If you come from a broken home, it's not a life sentence. I mean, like I said, it can be, but you have to work. I had to work twice as hard as other people. I had to become the person that I wished that I always had. So I couldn't find role models that were good role models. The role models I found were gang bosses in the streets, gangsters. I realized by the time I was 30, these type of motherfuckers ain't teaching me shit. They're trying to get me to do life in prison. That's what these guys are trying to do. They're trying to trick me and manipulate me to get me to go to prison. I was smart enough to see the fucking scam that was being run upon me. I couldn't find a fucking true mentor. Some Mark Twain motherfucker to be like, well, sit down, son, and let me teach you how the world works. I didn't have anybody like that. So I decided I'm going to become the person that I always wished that I was, so I can father myself. I can give myself advice. I can sit down and talk to myself. It was actually one of the best things I ever did for myself, and I was able to take myself out of the streets, take myself out of being stupid, take and transform who I was completely. That fatherly voice inside of me inspired me to go to college. I got a college degree in business. I mean, I went to college when I was 28, not 18. But it was that inner father. You have an inner child, I have an inner father. That told me, son, go to college, get an education, learn how to think, learn how to argue, be smart. Even if it doesn't provide you with a skill, it doesn't matter. Evolve your mind, man. That's what being human is all about. Be wickedly smart. So I did that. Started forcing myself to read. I've had learning disabilities my whole life. I started forcing myself to read. It may take me a year, 9 months to read a book only this thick. You could read that in a week. I know guys that can read that kind of book in a day. It might take me 9 months, 12 months. Painfully slow. But I forced myself to do it. And that inner father would say, keep going, boy, keep going. This is a means to an end. The whole time I was up at school struggling, and college was hard for me, I kept having that inner voice, that inner father saying, this is just a means to an end, boy. Just do it. I wake up early. I have a strong sense of daily discipline that rules my life. It's that inner father that helps guide me. Time to get up. Time to kill it. I never had anybody do this stuff for me. Help guide me. Show me how to fucking put my pants on. Show me how to throw a punch. Show me how to treat a woman. I never had any of this stuff. I've had to teach myself. I've had to learn. So if you come from a broken home, all it means is that you have more work to do. Are you sitting around making excuses, watching other people surpass you, wishing you had what they had? I used to be that way. Why can't I have relationships like that motherfucker? Why can't I ever move out of the ghetto? Why can't I ever do anything? I finally had to start teaching myself, start taking that initiative to push myself, to be the person I always wished that I had around me that would have raised me right. Even if it was a late age, I had to start raising myself right. So think about how you're spending your time. If there's aspects of your life that you feel like haven't worked out for you, and you're sitting here blaming your past like I used to, blaming what you didn't have, you lacked this, you lacked that, I didn't get the lesson here, I didn't... Start teaching yourself those lessons. Life is about choice. You have a choice every single day. Are you going to be strong today, or are you going to be weak today? If your choice is to wallow in shit, to sit around and complain and whine and bitch, then you've chosen to be weak. If you're going to get on it, get busy, tackle at least one thing, at least one area of your life. I'm going to tackle this today. I'm going to go after this today and try to make myself a better person. So when I go to sleep today, I will have known that I put up a good fight. If that's your mode, you're going to develop, just like I did, you'll develop that inner father, that inner warrior that guides you, that inner general that tells you, Private, get up, get on your feet. Thanks for watching.